it's a tiny bit weird. But if you had to take a bath in a food, what food would it be? And maybe Nate, you can get us started.
Oh wow, a food, huh? I'm gonna prioritize the feeling of warmth and be cozy if I'm having to be dunked in food. So I'm gonna say a nice thing of chili.
Chili, like a bean chili?
Like a bean chili, That's just it. I just want a warm chili on my body. That's it.
All right, pass it.
I'll pass it over to Zepti.
Oh, I was about to cheat searching on Google what's the best food to bath. I have no idea. Maybe some fruit then you're sticky. Oh damn. Could it? It's so hard. Cafe probably. It removes your dirty, even if you look dirty, but then you are clean somehow. Probably cafe, yeah. I'll pass it to Libby.
I think your body would absorb the caffeine too. So you'd feel like really energized when you got out.
Yeah.
This is not fair, this question today, because I just watched this movie yesterday called Tampopo. It's a Japanese movie that it's an ode to beauty and food and pleasure, but the food is so sexy all the time, so I can't think of anything else. I'll have to say like oysters. That would sound good. I'll pass to Juanca.
I think kiwi. I don't know. I like its texture. And Manu?
I would definitely be a seedless lychee. Yeah. Not genetically modified. Somehow there's a tree that gives seedless lychees, and I'd be that one.
What's that in Spanish, Manu?
It's LYCH.
I mean, in Spanish.
It's in Spanish.
Japanese.
You know what?
Se llama igual en español. Lychee.
Okay. I have no idea.
Yeah, lychee. I'll pass it to Chuy. Oh, by the way, Chuy, we are asking like, what food would you be if you were to be a food? Which one would you be? That's a question, right, Tam? You're muted.
If you had to take a bath in food, which food would you choose?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, still lychees.
Okay.
You're standing by the lychees. I like it.
I would go for a giant sushi bowl or a giant taco bowl. I'm good with either. And you get different ingredients, so yeah. I'll pass it to Nate. Have you gone?
I have. I'll pass it over to Griff, I think, because Tam are the only ones I think about.
I would go with straight up avocado. Probably be good for the skin, and just maybe get a little bit of salt and just like throw it on there and you're good to go. I'll pass it to you, Tam.
Yeah, I like this one. I'm gonna go with bubble tea, which my kids drink a lot, and it just feels like those tapioca balls would be like a kid's, like play pit, like one of those ball pits that seem like really fun and squishy. Wonka, Eddie, Edu, I can't wait to hear your answer.
This will be a very short and long answer, but at the same time, Lauren and Griff took me to a chocolate factory in Costa Rica, and I will be that chocolate for sure, because of the place where it is. It's an amazing place, and they have these indigenous cups that are for ceremonial chocolate, cacao things. So I will definitely be. I'm already brown, so I will like sort of disappear in the amount of chocolate. I will be that. Ratio, welcome. We are asking everyone if you will be a food to bath in, what food will you get bathed in?
I'm gonna go with melted cheese. Yep.
Awesome. Any particular kind of cheese, or anyone would do?
I'd say Gruyere, but it's kind of hard to melt it.
Cool. It's like a fondue.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for humoring my opening question, guys. And now on to the subject of our discussion group, our Stewards Council. Livia came up with our questions today. I threw this one on because it was the end of the Stewards call, and it was like the last minute, and it started running over, but it seemed as if we needed to continue the discussion. But I think I'm going to pass to you, Livia, because these are all related to each other, actually. And I think I'll say, I don't know if you want to include this one, but I'd rather you introduce these and get the discussion group going. Thanks. Thanks, Livia.
Tim, yeah, this is definitely part of it. Like, what are products that the working groups are creating? Has the TEC created any product that can be branded TEC? How are we building the narratives on the things we're creating together? And what are some of the working groups with external facing revenue models? So I know Gravity has one that's starting to do work with other communities. Comms also, with the whole comms team, has also been creating services that could be used for other DAOs, other communities. Comunitas, I think, has the onboarding process that has been becoming kind of a product. And I just left that as an open question for if anyone thinks their working group has some type of product, like params, for sure, the dashboard, the reward systems. There is, so much. So we had a really long discussion, like in the whole SoftGov call yesterday, Tuesday, and some of the most interesting things that came up were Squd DAOs using TEC tokens for service provision. Like, could this be a solution that, even though services are not being provided to the TEC, could the services be paid in TEC tokens? So there is this income to the treasury, but then there are some challenges that come with this, that the governance spreads with people that might not be value aligned. And what if there is conflict of interests? So maybe someone is hiring a working group to build a token model for a DeFi project, and then if they get a lot of TEC tokens, maybe they could start, after making proposals to the TEC and passing single-handedly. I don't know, there could be a range of second order effects that it's good to have in mind. And then one possible solution Nate suggested, and we fleshed out, is what if we had like a token engineering consortium for service? So having some type of a boundary around who can access services, as long as they are mission and value aligned. And maybe there could be many projects like Token Engineering Academy, Block Science, I don't know, Balancer or Vita DAO, or some of the projects that already shared their process in our TE Spotlight. For example, there could be a consortium that they pay in TEC for some services to be provided, and then services could be offered in a more broad spectrum. So this is some of the solutions that we were discussing and some of the approaches we could have, and that would have a positive feedback loop into our treasury and community, because it would be people that are value aligned. And then Chewy raised this question of what happens if working group find better sources of revenue in other DAOs? And this is possible. And then we thought of, well, this wouldn't be necessarily too bad because other groups can rise and offer similar services. More people in the TEC can rise up and create just different bodies that can also do comms, that can also do gravity, that can also do all sorts of things. And how would we keep this flow healthy and make sure that the needs of the TEC are being attended? And then just thinking of this nested enterprises concept of how much overlap we need to have to understand that a working group is like part of the TC or is in the core of the TC. And how much can we create different, I don't know, many organizations that are correlating with each other in a broader spectrum that are like aligned with a more broad mission, like public goods, for example, or that doesn't necessarily need to be all focused in token engineering. So that was just some of the points that we talked, and I wanted to open to everyone.
How would we define like a project it's aligned or not aligned? It's because
I think having
I just wanted to say like we could be dangerous if we only accept people we know, and probably projects that can also be aligned but we don't know them, then they could be excluded, even if sometimes like these people could be more aligned than some people that we know, but the others are just there because they're known.
I don't think it's about known. I don't think it's about being known or not, but just being aligned with our MVV. And maybe we could have some type of process to check that, or like how do we have clarity on what is to be aligned with the MVV?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe some accountability methods too.
Yeah, I think the values that we had, for example, in the MVV, pro-social, open source, and all this stuff, that can become or spin out as a checklist. So whenever you feel you're going to provide a service to, or any kind of service, you just go through this checklist and you notify this to your working group text channel, or the working group notify this to the steward channel, like, hey, we're going to provide these services, and this goes through this checklist. So I think it's a transparency matter of how we are on the know that these exchanges are happening outside the working group, because I cannot join all the working groups to know that you're providing a service, but it could be interesting that we just the same mechanism that we have for requesting funds to get reimbursed and for example Trinitas or stewards could be applied for services. So we can have a channel dedicated to it, or we can do it on the stewards or whatever it is, to just share, hey, I'm providing this service, or my work, or this working group providing this service to this DAO. It will start from this time to this time, and this is a checklist we went through, and it passed, so we're gonna do it. I think it will help the community to be aware this is going on, and for everyone about what's going on. And the second thing is that I felt that the idea of native TC tokens for service provision is one of the more circular and interesting ideas we have had regarding how how this becomes how this makes sense. And this is something I will encourage to sort of do, because even if the service or the DAO you're providing the service seems a little bit far-fetched, by providing the service and paying TC, we will probably advance the engineering, because that person will purchase these tokens and all this stuff. So I think it's a very interesting idea that I would add to this checklist of things, like, hey, check that you have all these values online when you're running the service, and check that this person agrees in advance that they are gonna charge or pay with TEC tokens. So for me, it's a matter of how we organize this workflow, and that most of TEC services follow a certain guideline that everyone is comfortable with. That's it.
Yeah, I want to say that I think this conversation is super interesting, and also that I have been trying to be very proactive in Gravity, but at the same time, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. So yeah, for me, it's super interesting and super enriching to have like clear boundaries, to know like, yeah, until which point and what activities can we offer. And this is something strange that happens with conflict management, and that conflict management turns out to be a funnel for other things. And like people maybe request support with conflict management for a personal issue or some coordination issue within an organization, but we and in the focus of Gravity, we only don't try to like turn out the fire, but to also offer some prevention alternative and prevention paths. So yeah, I think also that we could like get to a line where we say, okay, we can suggest some kind of prevention until this point, but there are other things that we cannot provide, and for that it's better to go to this or this other organization. And yeah, I also think that as I support the thing of receiving TEC as a way of payment from other organizations. Yeah, I think it's super interesting, and that through conflict management, I have seen like, because we have a type form that is open, not only the people in the TEC have used that type form, and sometimes yeah, I haven't like gotten into a deep mediation in other organization, but we have been offering like yeah, some support to people that just say that they are requesting support in the type form. And I think, yeah, it would be not good if we somehow exclude someone that is requesting support because of not being in an organization we know. But it's also something that, because we haven't talked about it yet, I have been like doing something. But I think that if we agree to something, I can also respect the agreements that we reach in this point.
May I just share some thoughts too? So the thing that I think is most compelling to me from this is that all of the services that the TEC provide would benefit from the knowledge and experience and the, collective intelligence of all of the stewards. And I think it's really important that somehow it gets brought to either the stewards working group or weekly, or probably our weekly isn't a good place to bring it up, just to put it on the radar of all the other stewards who will always have perspectives and ideas of how to even make that service better. So I really like the idea of having some way, like super low process, like low procedural, simple way to just make sure that the services that we're starting to think about providing for other DAOs is something that goes through, that is transparent to all the stewards, and sort of has an opportunity for people to have their some perspective on it as well. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I think it's happened with I think we were doing it a little bit in our sprint planning. Wanko will talk about the kinds of outreach that he's doing with other communities, and comms will talk about the planning that they're doing for TE. So we've had a little bit of it, but I think it's going to be maybe we could add like a little more process to it, just so that it's something. I don't know. Maybe we can even create some sort of area on our Git book where we have services that we are providing, and we can keep some documentation around what it is that we're working. It's actually good for our visibility too. And then I just because I want to say this idea of using TEC tokens, Nate, if you came up with that, that's a really cool idea. There's a really so I think the idea is that people would buy TEC tokens in order to pay for services in the TEC.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like that a lot too. Actually, it has a sort of commitment built into the agreement.
Well, and not only services to the TC, but mostly external services that are out of scope of the TC. And I think that was the most contentious discussion of like how, when we are introducing communities that might or might not be aligned with the TEC mission, how do we approach that? Do we carry the brand of the TEC, or does working groups become this Squd DAOs that have their own outreach, and then whenever they are relating with projects that are TE related, then it's one type of approach, and if it's projects that are not TE related, are another type of approach. And I think that's the boundary that we need to understand. And then the suggestion was that if it is TE projects, that we could create this type of consortium to amplify services and to make it like optimal for everyone, and create kind of a natural boundary that could be a part of our decision-making process, like who enters into this consortiums, are they aligned with our mission? It could be a submission of a proposal. And then the projects that are out of the scope, I wonder if we even need to have that communication coming into the TEC. Like, does this need to be part of our sprint plannings? Does this need to be integrated at all? Or this is the part of that where that overlap of boundaries kind of it leaves a little bit our edge.
I think that's really important, what you said about the boundaries in terms of like what leads into the TEC and what is isolated to the individual working groups and the potential services they're providing. Because I think that, most of the conflicts of interest it's one of those things like we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And right now, I think it's really important for each working group to really understand the services that they can provide and what type of services token engineering projects need. And I would like to see more information around that because, I look at a lot of TE projects, long tail financial, even Prime DAO and stuff. They're so, they have a large group of people who are working on token engineering advancements, but they're so, like, a lot of them are bogged down with managing a community, doing their own Twitter, doing all these other external things that we don't want them to be focusing on necessarily. And we could provide those services internally for them. And so when you look at those service packages and you say, okay, they're value aligned, they're advancing token engineering, let's get them maximizing their focus and their resources on actually developing new smart contracts, new advancements in this field. And I think that's really where we can really shine and provide these services. And I think it's up to the working groups to really make sure that, as you grow, as you get bigger, that the work that you're providing, the services that you're providing are going towards these ends and not the ends of people who would like to just take your services and take your human capital and the people that made it great and serve something else. And so I think that's a long-term concern, but at the short term, I think it's really important for us to really evaluate the landscape of like what kind of services are needed at this point in time. How can we provide it?
yeah, I just want to second that, Nate. Speaking from experience, being on the inside of Longtail, it's 100% the case. I think what the DAO ecosystem offers is an opportunity for specialization, deep specialization from each DAO. So at Longtail, really we just want to be a team of data scientists working in token engineering, building models and providing services. But there is all this other overhead that comes along with having a community, having a Twitter presence, and doing marketing and onboarding and all of this kind of stuff. So I just really resonate with what you're saying. That is, I see that vision of DAOs offering specialization, and then all of the other common infrastructure is something that TEC can really incubate, like reusable services to provide. So yeah, I think that's really great the way you outline that.
And we also saw CAD proposal recently to grow their community and how that could impact the TEC. And I really like this vision of having the TEC as this common ground that supports all token engineering projects in these many ways. And the infrastructure we have created is so robust now that it could really be that force to be shared.
And I think it can close the feedback loop. I think we can create the feedback loop where TEC is supporting these initiatives, and it can just become normal, commonplace for these initiatives to give back to the TEC. Like we were talking in the Stewards call yesterday, the proposal inverter, if there's some sort of revenue or fee system or tipping system, I would love to see a portion of that automatically mint TEC tokens on the bonding curve. I think that's super cool. I think with Longtail Financial providing token engineering services, there should be and this is what I've been pushing in Longtail, and I've talked to Griff about this a little bit, Longtail should commit 10% of revenue to minting TEC tokens and holding them in the treasury, something like this. I think it creates this where TEC is the open, neutral commons to support these initiatives, but it can partner with something like Longtail, which is a bit more sort of profit driven. But we're in this era of Web3 public goods. It's just, we have an opportunity to make that the norm, to make the funding of public goods and the supporting of public goods the norm of the culture across the whole ecosystem. So I think it could be a norm for TEC to incubate these kinds of projects, and then these projects come back and mint TEC. And it's really just realizing the vision of, Griff's solving the psychosis around public goods, because it's allowing these organizations to feed back into the TEC, but it's not just charity. They're not just making donations, they're minting TEC tokens. So they get to hold those TEC tokens in their treasuries or whatever they want to do with them, provide liquidity, things like that. And this then creates a feedback loop where the more that TEC supports other organizations, the more that those organizations will hopefully mint TEC tokens, maybe hold them in their treasury or whatever they do with them. But that creates the sort of flywheel that then I think would activate speculators. If speculators see that, oh, this is a growing ecosystem that is sort of feeding back on itself, then that gives this trajectory of growth for the bonding curve and for the TEC token, and is then a very attractive case for speculators to just ape in on the bonding curve.
I also want to say, from Gravity, that it's my experience. What happens is that we tend to centralize some information that can be sensitive. So our proposal is that we can provide the service to DAOs, but with our registry. But if any organization wants to have their own registry and have the agency to manage their own sensitive information, we offer that iteration and that training on the tools that we are developing. And also, if an organization tries to implement conflict management but they don't have policies around it, we also have to say like, hey, it's not only to have like this personal mediation between two people, but it's also some policies that you have to build, and we also wanted to offer that service of helping to build those policies around conflict management. But yeah, I would really restrict that offering towards conflict management, and not to any other type of advice regarding things that are not our competence, like token engineering or stuff like that. I think it would be good, as I am saying, that Gravity somehow can act like a funnel to also provide this portfolio of services that and each working group can also provide this portfolio of services that each of the DAOs are providing. And yeah, I am 100% into also giving back to the TC. I feel yeah, that's the idea and the circle. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
I mean, perhaps we should talk a little more about, because I feel like Gravity is a difficult service and a difficult product to kind of I don't want to say to monetize, but to bring utility for, in terms of like I don't know, because you have individuals. We want to have as many gravitons in this space as possible, and that broadly applies to not just token engineering projects, but all DAOs. And so the potential upside of utility of gravitons is massive. And so I'm not really exactly sure. Like some of us, like with the Communitas or like comms is a little bit more clear cut to me, but with other working groups, the services that we provide or the products that we produce and how we bring utility to the TEC token is very difficult for me to understand. And so I'm not sure if we can figure out a way to have more space to have these conversations about how to go about doing it. I think that would be really beneficial.
My view for Gravity's case, for example, is that there could be cases that are related with token engineering and cases that are unrelated with token engineering, and having a separation of both with like funnels that might receive different revenue streams could be a possibility, I think.
For me, Gravity, it's one of these cases that I feel is more of a part of common stack that because I feel it's more on the spectrum of the commons rather than the spectrum of token engineering. Of course, it will help token engineers, but I feel it falls in the category of a common stack kind of spectrum of things rather than necessarily a TEC service.
I tend to agree with that as well. Although, yeah, I do see the potential of using Gravity of producing products like conflict statistics. What are the most common types of conflicts that happen? Producing educational materials around conflict management, and possibly productizing that in some way. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there as well.
I just want to say, I think the TEC is the ultimate onboarding platform for community and culture in token engineering, of course, but then that kind of bleeds into like the greater sort of Web3 DeFi crypto space. And yeah, I just want to emphasize this concept that the TEC is the onboarding node, and we don't always talk about that, you know, like we talk about, okay, you know, we're doing Gravity, Gravity's amazing, we're doing token engineering. We're building out things like the reward systems, but I just want to give credit and praise to the onboarding. This space here, this Discord server, attracts a lot of people that end up really getting engaged and participating. And it's kind of like a training grounds. I mean, this is you can hop in this server basically 24 hours a day at any point and find someone to talk to. You can hop into a voice channel. I mean, there's meetings like 8 hours a day, so it's really easy to find people to talk to and get oriented. So this is sort of like the orientation station for token engineering, and I think that's a huge plus. So it creates like a breeding ground for these sub DAOs to spawn and generate, and it could be like a formal, or not formal, but it could be a standard process that we just acknowledge that yes, the purpose of the TEC is the support and funding of token engineering public goods, but hey, it's also just an amazing attractor for people to get oriented in the space, and they end up working on really cool projects, and we also support those projects. And so it's kind of like a talent generation place, and also could be a project incubation space, not to go too extreme on those ends, and like we always come back to the MVV, but just embracing what we have, like accounting for what we do really well, which is attracting people to the space and getting them oriented, and then even like training people. Join working groups and they figure out how it works and how to get involved, how to contribute, how to make forum posts, how to contribute. So TEC does have that. It's kind of like it's the best orientation and training grounds in token engineering. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, also just a quick comment on that. It's very beautiful actually to have that understanding, because it feels so wholesome with like this space that everyone has been sustaining for so long. And just to this comment of like, what is a product of where and how we are approaching things. We shouldn't forget that culture is a part of token engineering, and that there is a lot of these practices that have been developed here that are a core element of a healthy economy. So I think the discussion shouldn't be so much about like what is token engineering or not from the things that we have in the TEC, but just understanding the boundary of how we are branding this once we cross the border out of the TEC. Like everything that has been built here is so useful for token engineering, as like YGG was saying, this is an important ground. But then once we leave this almost like this physical entity space that we created, what happens?
Could you rephrase that question?
Yeah, so it's no doubt that gravity has use within the TEC. No doubt that all the working groups are super useful for the health of our economy and our community. But then once we are not only relating with the TEC, once we're not like 100% nested within these boundaries, how do we communicate? Do we continue to carry the branding of the TEC? Do we continue to use the funding from the TEC? Do we like just what are yeah, sorry, I can't express myself well.
I think I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm going to try to put it into different words too. And I think it's almost like there's no one rule fits them all. I think it's sort of a case by case basis, and as you know, and at a like a runtime decision, like you have to figure it out as it's happening. there, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that the TEC is doing really well. So we attract attention, and the other organizations were like, hey, we'd love to, can you help us with onboarding? Can you, how do you guys do it? How do you guys do this so well? How do you guys handle conflict resolution so well? We've heard so much about gravity. This praise thing, we want praising for us. So it feels like, the Discord, the onboarding experience, these bots that Vi has developed with Communitas to create sort of this like nice landing onto a Discord server. So there's a lot of things that sort of we're using or we're building that is really attractive to other communities. And I hear a lot about, can you help us deploy it there? Can you help us in Ocean DAO? Can you help us in Gnosis? Can you help us? And so I feel like we're fielding a lot of requests to replicate the processes or the tools that we use in other places. And I guess, one of the question marks that I have is, if there's a group of people who want to help another community do it in, and I guess this is where we're going, is like, are they doing it as TEC? Or are they doing it as like just a group of people who want to help another organization, build tools that are similar and or exactly the same as all of the open source tools that we have here. And I think that it's interesting because it's very, in some ways, entrepreneurial. Like, oh, we can do this. We can take these products and help another organization implement it there. And in some ways, it's also maybe missing out on the bigger, future roadmap of the products that are being built. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that well enough either, but I see that there's some sort of like, how do we make sure that when we're helping other organizations, or one, should we be helping other organizations deploy these tools? And two, when we're doing it, how do we make sure that we actually have the full support of the TEC in that process so that they benefit from all of the, the knowledge, experience, and future plans for the tools that are being deployed in other organizations?
I think, Juanca, do you want to talk? Because I saw that you're unmuted. I don't want to overstep.
Yeah, it was on something that stood on my mind since I heard it, and it's like I really feel like what really brought gravity to life was the implementation of Ostrom principles, because somehow Ostrom's principles validate with 3 principles the importance of conflict management. So like that fits very well in the Common Stack framework, and the Common Stack framework it was also the framework we used in the TEC. So I feel like this has been the fertile soil and the concrete soil for this project to have a space in the Web3 space, because other people, they don't care about this thoughtful implementation of principles on a community, and because of that they also easily miss conflict management. So I think that we really respect and honor, and we are very grateful for the Common Stack framework, because that was the validation that we needed to have a project talking about conflict management in the space.
And going back to the question, Tam, I feel like we are not a huge corporation. We meet every week. We are contacting each other constantly. So there is no reason for us to experiment also with this process, and also like set clear certain things like paying TEC tokens or stuff. But when you have a doubt, and I think this will happen with the first 1, 2, or 3 services that we provide, people will have questions. If Gravity goes to any other DAO, if Chewy goes to any other DAO, or whoever here goes to any DAO to replicate a service or a tool or a process that we have here, I think it's in the nature of us to trust that that person will get back at us at some point, either the stewards, either whatever it is, and comment on this potential partnership, receive feedback, and then probably based on these first or 2 or 3 iterations that we will have, then create a process that we can all feel comfortable with. Because right now I feel we are guessing and throwing stones at a lake without any information of how this will play out. And I think we just could count on transparency, on notification and communication regarding the service, and certain boundary like paying TC tokens, just to say as an example. And with this, then we give certain freedom, not to officialize the partnership, but to rely on the working groups and the stewards to officialize that partnership or that services to be provided. So it's not up to someone to officialize this, but up to the community or the steward or the working group to decide whether this potential service will be given or not. And there should be, of course, like for example, this happens to me a few weeks ago where I was in a community call of ENS, and they were talking about the code of conduct, and I said like, hey, TEC have a nice code of conduct, and they suddenly forked the TEC code of conduct, and they now ENS code of conduct, it's very, very similar to the code of conduct. But then do we charge them for that? Or, this is the kind of things that if I have the question, I have to go back to the source of truth, let's say in a way, or the community for collective intelligence. But I don't feel we have enough information right now to come to an answer to that question where how do we handle this in a very detailed way, because we haven't provided many services, I believe. So there is not enough information to,
We are open source.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify like the difference between replicating processes versus providing services or producing products. I think that the products that we produce and the processes that we've created, they are there for anybody to take. Whether we take part in helping them implement that, I don't think that is in our remit. And so I think that is one of the things that will naturally just expand, and the benefits of people coming to us and copying our processes will return to us tenfold. Maybe not in a direct, tangible way, but we'll have the respect and notoriety and the reputation within the system that is worth that type of thing occurring. And so I think the services that we provide, though, are something that we can do and that we can start to develop. And the great thing about if we provide services and we start to, if we go into block science and say we want to help you with comms, and they may have 1 or 2 people that are in their comms team right now, and you incorporate them into the fold of the processes that we've established, and so you start adding these specialized individuals into this broader organizational structure around communications, and you start to get experts start to emerge in these specialized fields. And all of a sudden, we have this really well operating comms group that can produce these things, Twitter management, newsletters, things like that. And the more talent you get aggregated into one body, the better the product will become, or the service will become, and the more services we can provide. I think the one thing that Libby was reaching about was like, if a working group can become self-sustainable, I think that's a good thing. I think if they don't need to rely on the TEC treasury to manage their operations to compensate the people that are doing the work for them, that is all the better. But it gets to a point after that where you go, okay, if they're no longer relying on the TEC, what keeps them committed to the TEC mission? And that's where the fulcrum of the problem, I think, exists. And so how do you keep, people, as Chewy's comms team keeps growing and growing, and you get people who are not necessarily aligned with the values of the TEC or around prioritize the mission of the TEC, how do you prevent the work that is being done from absolutely abandoning the goals of the TEC mission for something else? And so, yeah, just want to add that.
Yeah, on that note, I think something that would be very important to have is just when things are happening unrelated to the TC, to not carry on the TC branding. And that's where transparency would be very welcome, to like have a differentiation of, okay, this project is incubated in the TC, is part of the foundation of the TC. It works with the TC, but whenever it's working outside of this boundary, it doesn't carry TEC branding, and everyone understands that it's something else.
What would a use case be where a working group or a Squd DAO is working outside of the token engineering? Like with an organization that wasn't value aligned, for example. I mean, I just can't think of an instance where that happened, and I wonder, do we have a scenario in mind?
I always like think about Sushi Swap and the Vampire Attack, just simple incentives. I mean, if you were to provide, let's hypothetically say that Comp's team does a really good job of aggregating really good talent, and they're providing this really good baseline of services, and currently they're getting paid X amount of compensation, and a protocol comes and says, "Hey, we want to hire your entire team, and we will pay you handsomely to abandon your mission, to abandon everything that you're focused on right now to work with us. And basically, we're just going to buy a really good public goods service DAO and use it for our own ends." And so that's the one I always think about, because I do think it's worth it. It's low cost, and you get the human capital and the talent that you need to actually execute on that end.
There was a case with Gravity, for example, that I'm not going to mention the name, but like quite a random project that doesn't seem to be mission aligned at all, approaches to solve a certain conflict, and then has an expectation to receive like some advisory from the TEC, because they're hiring Gravity, that is a working group that has been branded as TEC, and then therefore it feels like it's connected, and that this service being provided would entitle some type of connection here.
I wanted to. Sorry, Tam.
That's okay. I just want to say something quick. The calm scenario, I mean, if that happens, that happens. We can't really prevent that, actually, But the Gravity example maybe is, I guess, worth questioning. Maybe worth questioning. Sorry, Chewy. I'll throw back to you, and then maybe Wonka wants to share too.
I've been thinking during this call about this idea, because I feel that the animation team right now is in that situation where we're being able to discuss it and accept that the TEC is right now under a specific circumstance where we just couldn't get the most out of it as they are capable of delivering. So we're trying to look for other sources of revenue, but just for the team itself. So we're starting to talk to T-Wells about maybe improving some of the animations involved in One Hive and stuff like that. But at the same time, the difficult situation, and at the same time something that I was being more patient on, because I wanted to observe how discussions like this were developing, is we're gonna submit a proposal, and this proposal is gonna have a retroactive bonus for kind of developing what are the grounds and just the roots of the team itself, to work as a unit. So I didn't really have had a clear idea about okay, so how can we give back to the TEC in that sense? And I'm just starting to think that maybe the TEC, maybe getting TEC tokens and pay them in TEC could be one of these situations where we can benefit or give some kind of like benefit back. But I mean, I'm still trying to work around that idea, like how could it work? But it's something that I just don't want to like leave. Like I believe that there should be ways in which this team can give back to the TEC for, in a way, being like the platform and providing resources to develop this workflow that they're going to be using for what they do. So yeah, I just wanted to share that idea, but probably still good to call it a work in progress.
Yeah, I wanted to, thanks Chewy for that. I wanted to jump in and comment on something. I think there's an alternative mindset to the working groups being self-reliant, and it's this idea that we can all grow collectively the TEC simply by minting TEC tokens. Like, I think we should make shirts that say mint tech, and just get every DAO in the ecosystem can benefit from the TEC growing and continuing to nurture the furthering of token engineering public goods. And they can all do that by minting TEC. So if, again, it's like a cultural norm, I think we like almost like a marketing challenge where if someone forks our code of conduct, that's fine, it's open source. But it's nice if they feedback credit, you know, if they want to support us, they can mint tech. So, and then this is all blockchain, so it's all public, so we can look at each DAO. You know, Gnosis has hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, all these DAOs can mint tech and hold them in their treasury, and it's all public information. We can track that. So there should be pressure on big organizations. If they want to support token engineering public good, they should mint tech and they should hold it in their treasuries. And if we're providing services, I think it'd be a cool form. It's harder because it's less predictable than just like getting a payment. But if we provide services and we say, listen, just mint tech, that's how you support us. Just mint tech, and then do whatever you want with it. You can sell it. We're still going to get the tribute. Better yet, you could hold it in your treasury, or better yet, you could provide liquidity. And it's a sort of more of a collective growth mindset than each working group just being self-sustainable. And then there's probably a happy medium of both of those approaches.
Yeah. I wanted to say that what I have seen when I receive cases from organizations is that there is very low infrastructure in those communities, and the first thing the first approach that they have when they come or request conflict management is like turning out the fire. But what I come to see when I at least make a first approach to those organizations is like I tell them like, hey, you don't have policies that support or a process that is designed and acknowledged by people that says what will happen in the case of a conflict. So you need to build policies. And sometimes I also see communities that they don't have a very strong community. So some of the things that I say is like, hey, look at the TEC. They care a lot for the community and for the culture, and that's something that you could also do. But yeah, my intention is not to offer things that it's not on our ground, really. But somehow,
because it's the top of the hour and our community call should be happening right now.
Yeah,